The first tip here is the Quick Access Toolbar. The Quick Access Toolbar is this area at the very top on the title bar of the window. And as its name says, it's one-click access to the features that you want to use the most. It's very easy to set up. I've got a couple screen prints here. You click on the drop-down menu right there, and there are a few things that are, I guess they figure, that are popular, but you can get just about any command in Excel to appear on the Quick Access Toolbar. Who uses that? Okay, good, because we're going to see a few things that you might consider putting up there as we go through this session. So here it has popular commands, but you can go to all commands, and this will be the entire list of everything in Excel, kind of in alphabetical order. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So if you find yourself using one thing a lot, you can put it up on the Quick Access Toolbar. Not even sure what I have up here. But a couple of them will be useful for the presentation. Okay, that's the first thing. Next, customizing the ribbon. Did you know that you can make your own tab on the ribbon? We have a nod over here. I have it highlighted with a couple little special gizmo characters to make it stand out, but I've just started building this. I use connections to SQL Server a lot where I work, and so I have it. I have them right here for bringing in data from all kinds of sources and to refresh any refreshable spreadsheet that I'm working on. So this is a tab, and these are the groups that you can select. Again, in the same way as you do the Quick Access Toolbar, you just right-click anywhere on the ribbon and then choose Customize, and you get that same dialog box. And as I say, make your own tab with the things that you use most often in one place. Next, Alt-Enter. If you're typing into a long string of text into a single cell, you know that it extends out past the right edge. You can set the word wrap on, and that works just fine. But there are times when you want to organize the text a little bit better. For instance, if you have some bullet points that you'd like to have on separate lines. I'm going to take the word wrap off and then use the keystroke that will give me that capability. I'll go into the edit and put my cursor right there, and I press Alt-Enter. Alt-Enter breaks the line. So like this, put it right there, go over next to the 1, and Alt-Enter, go to the next bullet point right here, press Alt-Enter, and finally for the last one. Okay. It's a little counterintuitive, but you know that when you hit Enter in a cell, it moves out of the cell. Down here I have a text box. Text boxes are very handy. Those you get to by going to the Insert menu item, and the text box is way over here. If I select it, I can then just draw it, and it's this blank slate, and I can start typing. I can use formatted text and so on. But this is a little easier to deal with because I can press Enter, and it works as you would normally, like a teeny tiny word processor. So you got that choice. If you use Alt-Enter, you can put text on separate lines inside of a single cell, or use a text box for longer text. Next. This is sample data that we're going to use for a whole bunch of other things. And it's just nonsense stuff. It's sales information, but I've used this as a source for a number of things. First one being camera. How many of you have heard about camera in Excel? Okay, the IT guy has. This is very, very interesting capability. I'm going to go back to the sample data here and then select all of it. And then I have up on the quick access toolbar, I have the camera icon. I click there. Then I go to where I want to put it, and it dumps it in here. What it is essentially an image, like a Polaroid snapshot of that table. But it's way more interesting. Since it's like an image, I can flip it. I can do all those resizing things that you can do to an image. But this is live. This column of data over here is what feeds the price column on this sheet here. So the $70 you see from the formula up there is from the camera tab and cell blah blah, whatever that is. If I go back over here and I change the price on this one, the price changes here. What that means is you've got a don't touch piece. I mean, your spreadsheet will operate, will show results, but you can't mess with it. You can't change the dimensions of it or change the column widths. You can't change the fonts. You can't dink with it at all, but it is live. So if you have places to put in parameters in another part of the sheet, it will feed directly into that, and it's just kind of cool. In the same what? Question is, does it have to be in the same workbook? I believe so. Those inter-workbook things, we're not going to touch on that because that is a can of worms. I know because we have a lot of them where we work. All right, next is goal seek. I copied the data from that sample data deal, and I have a little bit of instruction here. What I want to do is, all right, how many units do I have to sell of this product to reach $20,000 in profit? So I'm going to put here, there's 16,000. Well, let me make this a little bigger so you can see it better. Come on. Right? What? Oh, that's later. Okay. $16,000 profit there. I want to change that to 20,000, or have it determine how many widgets I have to sell to reach $20,000 in profit. So that's the goal that that's the place that I want to see the goal. I go to the data tab, and then the what if analysis way over here, and I drop down the list and I choose goal seek, and I get this little tiny dialog box kind of out of the way. It sees that that's the cell where I want the result to go. I want it to go to 20,000, and I want to change the value in this cell right here. I press enter. So now I've got it set up. Then I click OK, and $20,000 profit if I sell 23 units. And it is a little bit simplistic because you've got the one goal, you have the one parameter that needs to change, and then you have the amount that you're trying to get to. But it's really interesting in a sheet that has complex calculations. Because let's say that quantity sold was in a calculation that was, maybe even on a different sheet. That number fed this, and I have power calculations and logarithms, and then there's some fairing of whatever and averages, and it finally comes down to this gross profit. If the calculation is at all complex, the goal seek is really kind of cool because you see it kind of narrowing into the value. This one was really simple. You didn't really see anything happen. Next, conditional formatting. We are used to conditional formatting for a whole bunch of things, but you may not have tried some of the options. For example, in this gross profit column, I've selected all the values in that column, and I'm going to go to icon sets. This was a fairly recent addition, and one thing that I kind of like about this is I can hover over any of these, and it does the computation, and it figures out where the icons should go. So if I choose one, red downward pointing arrow, the yellow minus or the level, and then the green up arrow. If I need to sort something here, I have this filter by color, and it shows me the icons themselves, so I can sort by the icon. I want to have the red float to the top, and I think I made it a filter rather than sorting. Yes, I filtered. I wanted to sort. Clear the filter. Sorry, I'm seeing this from the side. There's the sort. Sort by color. I want the red to come up top. So it's not just by value or by some readable parameter. But the conditional formatting, you have the color scales you may be familiar with. If I pick this here and I do the conditional formatting, and I'm going to clear the rules so that this table is empty, the color scales, boom. It looks at all the data in the column, and then it figures out what's the green, what's the red, what's the yellow. Okay, pretty simple. Slicers. Slicers are an advancement on just plain old filters. I put the cursor anywhere in the table so that Excel knows that I want to deal with the table, and I select Insert and Slicer, which is way over here, and then I pick the column that I want to use to slice. So I'm going to pick the product ID, and boom, I get a list of the products. Now, this is not a terribly useful slicer because there's only one row of every single product. But I can add another slicer for the salesperson. And now I've got slicers that will interact. So I pick Bob, and it highlights his products. I pick Frank, it highlights Frank's products, and it filters the table at the same time. So it's an extra visual cue of what you're filtering. Okay? I mean, this is just a taste of some of these things. I'm not going to go in terrible depth because we got a lot to get through. But they're very simple to set up. There's really nothing to it. All right, next, go to errors. To find your spreadsheet errors, and you can see I've got a couple here, divide by 0, but say this is a 1,000-row spreadsheet and there's 40 errors in it. I use a shortcut key, Control-G, which is the go-to. And there is a button on here called Special, and this list will let me isolate out just the errors. I should blow this up too. Can I do that here? No, I gotta pick it. All right, so errors. I click OK, it highlights the error cells. So if I have the list or they're scattered all over the sheet, I can see them. They stand out. That's what that does, going to all the errors. All right, next, fixed. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Okay, gotta widen these so we see it better. The profit, did I do the based on the profit? Yes. I can't see that formula. Oh, it's pi. That's what it is. I remember now. Thank you. The engineer would spot that right away. Matt is an engineer, by the way, at our company. So I multiplied the profit times pi just to get a number that has all kinds of decimal points. And when you use the rounding function to round off a number like this, it doesn't actually get rid of the extra decimals. They're still there in the background, even though you've rounded it to 2. So then when you add up a column and you see you're a penny off, it's because there's still a rounding error. The accurate, or not accuracy. I'm sorry?
Everything to the right of where you want to cut it off is still adding.
Yes. Yep, all the thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. So what I'm going to do here is round this to just a couple decimal points. But you see this column is 10 times or 100 times this value, and it still has all the decimals. The fixed column uses a formula with the fixed function, and it points to the lots of decimals column, and it says, give me just 2, round off to 2, but that's what I want. That's the end. So these numbers here are actually just 2 decimal points. I noticed something odd about a column with fixed numbers in it. This is a sum up here of everything in this column, but it doesn't show anything, and I can't quite figure that out. I'm adding up these fixed values, and I get nothing.
Well, it looks like they're in there as, not as numbers, but it's just...
As text, perhaps?
No.
Let's see. It is accounting. So the format of all these... No, it did what it did. There is no justification. None of these things are selected. So I'm not sure what's happening there. So just to show, though, that you can make use of that, this here, I've multiplied this number times 10, and then I added that up there. Now it adds up. So you could multiply it by 1 and get the total, but I'm not quite sure what that deal is, why it doesn't add up a column of fixed numbers. Next.
The help says it returns it as text.
I'm sorry?
It says it returns it as text in the help here.
Huh. Well then, this is one of those Excel things that is confusing, because if I look at these numbers that I've rounded down, these numbers here, which have the fixed formula, they're in the accounting format, but there's no alignment. Okay, enough on that. It's a way to absolutely get just 2 decimals, or however many you want. Okay, I'm not going to do a demonstration of this because it would be fairly complicated, but this feature, Compare Spreadsheets, requires that you have Office Professional Plus or Office 365 Professional. You might want to check that on your systems because you have access to an additional menu called Inquire. And on the Inquire menu, there is a Compare option, Compare Files. So I can take 2 similar spreadsheets, put them through the ringer here with Compare Files, and it will come up with a report with all kinds of color coding and so on to show you what the differences are. If anything's been deleted, if anything's been added from one version of your sheet to the next. You can get the add-on. If you don't have the add-on, I've got a link here for getting that. Lets you see the differences cell by cell between two workbooks. Cancel. Let me go. Results are color-coded by the kind of content. The formulas, named, ranges, formats. It'll even show if you've got any macros or VBA code that's different. It'll show you that too. All right, that's compare spreadsheets. Next. Trim and clean. I don't have to type anything here. I've got everything all laid out, but let's make it bigger so you can read it. Whoa, that is really monster. Yeah. Okay. The cell A3 is a cell that has a lot of formatting gobbledygook. There's extra spaces, and there's hard returns, and it's just kind of scattered all over. If I use the clean function in Excel, it will take out the hard returns, but it leaves a lot of the extra spaces. You can see the extra spaces here and here. If I use the trim function by itself against this cell, it takes out all the extra spaces, but it leaves in the extra returns. It doesn't put it into a nice format. But if I use clean and trim together, then it gives me a cell that looks like a paragraph without me having to go in and remove the spaces individually. That's clean and trim. Next. Sum if and sum ifs. Anybody have trouble with sum? Anybody? You're supposed to laugh as if, ha ha ha. Who would even dream of having trouble with sum? Because it's so easy. Besides, you can do it automatically from the ribbon. Sum if and sum ifs, although some people pronounce this sum if s. What do you call it? Sum ifs?
I don't use it.
What? Well, that's actually a good point. That leads into something that I wanted to say about sum ifs. Here, this sheet. Let's blow this up. Gotta use the mouse a little better. Okay, this grid up here has names of people that are travelers or salesmen, whatever. This is the total amount of expenses that they've charged on their latest trip, and then here it's broken out by the type of expense: food, travel, and hotel. Oh, I know why. Because I went through the exercise of locking the formulas. So I can't even land on them. And that's a feature that is further on down the tab, and I didn't return it to the way it was. I might have to come back to this. Keyboard shortcuts, I've only got a few here, but these are very handy. Control Z, everybody uses Control Z for undo. Excel is very nice that way. It'll let you undo for a long time. If you've put in like 15 different things and you want to go back to just before you did that, you can do it with Control Z. But to redo, it's Control Y. Some people put well, here's an undo here, that little symbol. The redo is a curly Q going the other way. Selecting a row. I have my cell, my cursor in a cell. I hit Shift space and it selects the row. Have my cursor there and I do Control space. It selects the column. That can be a little handier than trying to get it by going to these column headings or row headings. Hiding a row, Control 9, and hiding a column is Control 0. I know that we do a lot of row hiding at GLC in some of our sheets. all right? I mean, there's 175 keyboard shortcuts. Nobody can remember them all, and it's not even worthwhile, I think, to print it out into a cheat sheet because there's just too many. You might as well use the menus because you're used to going to the menus. But some of these things, it's nice to have right there. Next, dates. This is a whole big topic in itself. I've got a series of dates here from the 20th of December down to the 3rd of January, starting in 2018 to the 3rd of January 2019. And I've put in this column holidays. Now, why do we do that? I'm going to get rid of that and put in 12/31 as the holiday. 2018. Okay. This cell here uses the day function. The day is the 20th, the month is the 12th, and the year is 2018. That's all pretty clear. Those are very simple functions. EDate. Anybody use EDate? I don't even know what that stands for. I looked through the documentation to see if there's a longer version of the name, but it's called EDate. The formula is EDate, and you give it the cell you're interested in. In this case, it's B3, and then a number. -1, in this case, means give me the same day on the previous month. If I change this to -3, it gives me the same day 3 months ago. If I copy this down to the rest of the column, it knows that September 30th, that's a 30-day month. December is a 31-day month, so it knows to still put September at the 30th. It doesn't give an invalid date. And then it rolls over to October. That's what EDate does. You want a date in a previous or future month that is the same day as the date that you got on the sheet. All right. To get the day of the week, there isn't a specific date function for it, but you can get it by using the text function. Again, pointing at the cell you're interested in, and then using a date format code. 4 capital D's represents the name of the day. So again, I copy this down into the rest of the rows, and it gives me the days. Okay, anybody, is this a new thing to get the day of the week? Nobody ever used this? How about you? You've used it? Okay. You didn't raise your hand. That's why I pointed at you. Okay. Fine. Very good. The days, I give it 2 dates. In this case, it's this day in B3 and this day in F3, and it tells me there's 91 days in between those 2 dates. So sometimes it's a little bit of a pain to figure out how many days there are between 2 dates. This is the function that you use for it. Net work days. That is a little bit more complicated. I point to the cell range that I'm interested in. The starting cell is B3. The ending cell is B17. So that is, did I say B3? What is this? Oh, it says B5. I must have moved this. I didn't. This is just text. But this cell here is pointing at the range B5 through B19. And the range is set up oddly, I think. You have the starting cell, comma, ending cell. And then if there are holidays that you want it to pay attention to, you put that in the normal Excel range notation, and I have blocked out this range of cells for the holidays. So the net working days is 15 days minus 4 holidays minus Saturday, Sunday, so on. So it gets down to 7. 15 minus 4 holidays minus 4 weekend days is 7 days, working days. End of the month, very handy, very simple. I forget what the 0 means in this formula. That might be the same thing as this. Oh, I bet you it's the same thing as this e-date. You put a number there to represent the previous month or the next month. Weekday, this is the fifth day of the week, starting with Sunday is 1. And it's looking at cell the F column. So the weekday is a Thursday. That is the 5th day of the week. And finally, the week number for that. So there's a lot of date stuff that you can do. Next, tab list. There's a lot of tabs on this sheet, like 30 of them. And it's a bit of a pain to scroll through them with these little arrows. But if you right-click on the right-pointing arrow, it gives you all the tabs in a nice little list that you can scroll through. And the names of the tabs are in order. So I can find the tab I want to go to very quickly. Okay, easy. That was kind of discovered by accident by one of the MVPs, and so it turns up into a tip. Pivot into tabs. Here we have a pivot table, and you know it's a pivot table because it comes up with this, the list of the fields. How many of you are not using pivot tables? 1, 2, 3. Very few. Okay, that's great, because pivot tables are dead useful. So we've got this one. This is very simple. You can see that we've got the rows, we've got the product name, and then the 3 columns here are actually the summary values. And the filter is the salesperson, and in a pivot table, the filter is put into a drop-down list above the pivot table. So there's our 3 salespeople. What you can do, this function, pivot into tabs, we go to the analysis tab. When I have to select the pivot table so that I get the analyze tab. And then way over here on the left, there's a little drop-down option, drop-down menu for option, and one of the options is I can't read that. Show report filter. The hell? What does that say? Show report filter pages. Okay. So this report only has one filter, the salespeople, and so that's what we see here. And actually we see here, because this is just a snapshot of the deal. If I click OK, it now makes a separate tab for each salesperson and all of their sales for the products. It put them right next to the tab list. There's Bob, there's Frank, there's Millie. It busted up that pivot table into 3. If you had 10 salespeople, there'd be 10 tabs. Okay? That's what pivot into tabs does. Right-click fill. This is pretty interesting. Another one of those deals that you just kind of discover by accident. Normally, when you've got a date, or any kind of data that you want to have laid out sequentially in rows or columns, I would click on the cell. To get the fill handle in the lower right-hand corner, cursor changes into a cross. I drag it down, and it fills out the date range. All right. If, however, I right-click on that fill handle and drag down, looks the same, but when I release, I get a menu. And I'm going to choose fill the months. It fills the same day for each of the following months. Do the same kind of operation, right-click on that fill handle, drag it down, and fill weekdays. So these are the weekdays for that range of dates. It's just one of those Excel features that kind of lies buried until you stumble across it. But just kind of cool and handy. Next, F9 to show values. Now, this this one has got the formulas in it, and I can go back to what I was showing you before with some if and some ifs. I can do two birds with one stone. I'll do that first. First, magnify this. All right. This top grid here lays out the salespeople. This is the one row for each salesperson and their expenses. This cell uses the sum if function. If I hit F2, it shows me that it's looking at this table for the name of the traveler, and we see Belinda here half a dozen times and Shawn 5 times. And then that's what it's going to look up. And the value that it's interested in is Shawn. Then the values that are supposed to add up will be from this same table, but it's the amount column. So it's going to add up all the amounts for Shawn that appear in this table. I'm going to make this a little wider here so we see that's a date. Some ifs or some if-s, however you want to pronounce it, a little more complicated. The idea is I still am interested in Shawn, but now I'm also interested in his food expenses. I can see down here that he has food here, and that's about the only one. How about travel? He's got 3 travel expenses, here, here, and here. In the travel column, it's still looking for Shawn in this column here. Whoopsie. This column right here. Then it's also looking for food in this column. And it knows it wants Shawn because Shawn is listed there and food is listed up here. So it's looking in 2 places for its conditions. And then it's adding up the amounts in this column that correspond to Shawn's food purchases or Shawn's travel purchases. That's the sum if s. And interesting thing about it is that you can have a whole boatload of parameters. You're not limited to just 2. You can go a dozen. I don't know what the limit is, but if you've got a really complicated model that has multiple selections, then some ifs will do it for you. Now, this gentleman doesn't use the command because he knows that a pivot table will do the job better, at least with the simpler ones. So for instance, if I take this table right here and I say I want to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to put it right here, I'm going to put it right there. And say OK. And then here's my field list. And I'm going to take the traveler, the name of the salesperson. Here it only shows me 3 because there's only data for 3 in this table. It doesn't show me the whole list. That's one of the differences. But to get the breakout by expense type, I just bring the type column over here, and then I add up the amount in the summary values, and boom, there it is. A little bit stripped down version of that other table up there, but if you have multiple values that you want to keep track of but don't necessarily have data for, then you have to go through the sum ifs routine. So now I put the field list away, and then there it is. So sum ifs can be, in some cases, replaced with a pivot table. Next. Actually, I'm going to save what we've got here. Go on to the next tab. Highlight the current row. This is about the most complicated tip on this sheet. You can see that the cursor is in cell A1, and that whole row is colored. I think that people would find this very handy in Excel to have it color the entire row. But it is a little bit complex to set up if you've never worked with VBA. It does require a bit of VBA code, which is shown right here. This is a snapshot of the VBA code. It's not very much, and it is found on a blog entry that Shawn Dorward did, and the link to it is right here. I did this and added the capability to this sheet, but I noticed that his code had some errors in it, and I show what his code comes up with and what it should be. So it's something that you have to watch out for. You know, if you're just copying the code, yes, Lee.
How is this different than just clicking on the number of the row on the left-hand side?
Because you don't have to click on the number of the row on the left-hand side.
But you still have to move your cursor to the row.
Sure.
So it's, I use a mouse all the time, so moving the mouse down is just as easy as clicking on the left.
But if you click on the left and you got the right row, and then you say, okay, now I want to change this value, well, the highlight goes away. It doesn't stay there. If I click on the row right there, and then, well, now this, I can't do it here. I got to do it on another sheet.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. The highlight goes away as soon as you type something,
Right.
whereas this, the highlight stays there. So, slight difference. If you didn't hear the question, I want to quick repeat the question. Lee asked, why not click on the row number on the left-hand side, because that'll highlight the whole row. It does, but as soon as you make an entry in a cell on that row, the highlight goes away, whereas this capability, the highlighting stays in place. Next, filter by selection. This that you see here looks like a table, but it's not. It's just a normal Excel row and column grid of values. There is a kind of a hidden feature in Excel called auto filter, and I've added it up here on the quick access toolbar. If I'm looking at this table and I say, all right, I want to see all of Frank's maintenance department sales in Mexico. If this were a table, fine, just hit the filter things and filter out on those three, but it's a little bit, go to that column. If there's a long list of possibilities in that column, you got to scroll through the list or search for it. Filter by selection is kind of cool because I can click on any instance of Frank, and I click on the filter. Boom! It filters that range of cells. I click on maintenance, and boom! There aren't any in Mexico, so I can't do the third condition. To unfilter it the easiest thing to do is go to the Data tab and click on the filter icon, and it puts all the rows back. But if you've got a lot of data with multiple criteria, it's just click on the example you're interested in, filter. Click on another example, filter. Click on another example, filter. You're done. And it will add the little filter dinguses on the column headings. So it looks like a table now, but it's not. It's just a regular range of cells. So I can click on, these are all maintenance. I click on USA and I click filter and, okay. Next, paste into chart. Oh, this one and the last one, these are things I found in this book. I recommend this highly. Anybody have this book by Mr. Excel? You should get it because there's 617 questions answered at length with explanation, reasons why it's a little shaky, some examination of the underbelly of Excel, how it works. But it's actually kind of fascinating. You get to an area, and the questions he deals with, they all kind of flow into each other. They're all kind of related in each section of the book. And you're just reading about it, open it up, and, oh, okay, that's interesting. Go to the next one. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. It's like the whole book is like that. $39.95 US. Excellent book. This chart right here was made showing January through May sales. Let me make this bigger again. January through May. But now I've got June, and I just typed those in. Do I have to go into the graph and change the data range and, be careful about how I move my mouse or my keyboard, because it's a pain in the neck. I don't know about you, but every time I try to change a range on a graph and I accidentally hit the arrow key and boom, it points to a new cell. Okay, all I need to do is select that range and let's see, I got to remember how to do this. Is it the copy and paste? Copy and paste. There. I just why didn't it stay? I thought I could drag it down. Now this worked in the store. Copy and then paste. Well, that's interesting. Why is there all of a sudden? Okay. Yeah. Maybe I didn't misspell it, did I? No, it's June. Okay. That one kind of flopped, folks. That might be. The values are slightly different. But, all right, I'm going to move on. You might want to research that one, but you're supposed to be able to copy the values right on top of the graph, and it adds it to the graph. Sort left to right. I've got the deal here is every month we get a download from the IT department, and they haven't in quite a while changed the query so that the columns are in the order that I want. But if I put in a row above this range of cells the numerical order that I want the cells to be in, I just select everything. I see my instruction says without. It's actually with the numbers. And I choose data and sort. And in the sort dialog box, there is an options button, and I tell it sort left to right. Click OK, and OK. All sort criteria must have column or row specified. Oh, right, I didn't do that yet. I have to sort by, row 3. That's the one that I want to sort by, and it puts them in the right order. It puts the entire columns in the right order. And how many times have you had to finagle around in Excel to move this column over here in between these two others? Here you can do it just by typing a row of numbers. And I'm going to change this instruction to the proper, it should say with, not without. And delete there, enter. Okay, I'm going to save it. And let's move on. There's only a very small number of things left. Oh boy. The old not responding.